I'm Josh, I'm an investment researcher and a qualified actuary, and in this video I'm going to run through how to take back control of your life in just 3 steps. So step number 1 is to stabilize your environment. Now, Atomic Habits by James Clear is one of the best books I've ever read on self-improvement, but in particular it's one of the only books I've read on environment design and how important it is. His first law is make it obvious in terms of developing new habits, and as part of that he says that environment matters more than motivation. So to take back control of your life, you need to stabilize your environment, because taking back control means that you're in charge of what's going on and you're not just reacting to what other people or other things are telling you to do. I say you need to stabilize your environment because if your environment is constantly changing, you're constantly having to change and adapt to that environment, and that change is costly. If your environment is stable, then you're not having to expend any effort into adaptation and you can just focus on yourself and what you want to do. Now, in Atomic Habits, James Clear quotes a famous psychologist who said in 1936, behavior is a function of the person in their environment. So it just shows that anything you want to do, i.e. the behavior that you want to enact, is a function of you, yourself, and your environment. So to stabilize your environment, obviously the best and most stable environment you probably have is your home. But within your home, it's probably best to have certain environments that are dedicated to certain activities. And by having an environment that is stable, you'll be able to take more control of what you're doing and you'll be able to carry out the activities that you want to do. So if you want to take back control of your work, then it's probably best to have a space for you to work at home that is stable, set up, neat and tidy, you can get to every day, and you don't have to worry about where you're going to work, you just have to worry about the work you're doing. Similarly, if you want to work out every day, it's probably best to have a place where you can work out every day that's stable, you've got your equipment set up, and it's super easy to get to and reach. If you want to do some reading, you probably want to have somewhere that you can sit and read comfortably for long periods of time. By stabilizing the environment, it means that you have the place already set up to go to, and you just have to focus on carrying out the action. You can take control. Step number 2 is to identify the controllables and the uncontrollables. So modern Stoics often quote the serenity prayer, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to accept the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's a prayer that's also used in Alcoholics Anonymous, so it's very well rehearsed, but I think a lot of people don't focus on what are controllables and what are uncontrollables. So to take back control of your life, you need to focus on the controllables. You don't want to waste effort on the uncontrollables because you've only got a finite amount of effort, so it makes sense on using that effort on the areas that can have the highest impact. I would put other people into the uncontrollable bucket. So other people are not controllable and they are some combination of rational and irrational, and their behavior can affect you. So I think one of the best things that you can do is to do monk mode and hide away for a couple of months, or just dedicate some time every day to reduce external inputs from other people, and that can allow you to really think about what you want to do, what you need to do, and take back control of your life. So what is controllable? Well, there are lots that are actually within your control if you think about it. How you think, and that's another classic Stoic point. What you eat generally is within your control, what you put in your body. Your social media feed, you can control what you look out there to some extent, although there are some advertisements in there. So one of the key things, taking back control of your life, is work out what's within your control, what's not, and focus purely on those controllables. So step number 3 is to quieten the noise from the uncontrollables. So once we've identified the uncontrollables, it's about limiting your exposure to those, because that can allow more space and more time and effort for you to take back control of your life. So how might you limit your exposure to uncontrollables? Well, as James Clear says in his book Atomic Habits, you're constantly receiving cues and inputs from your environment. You want to make sure that your environment's giving you the cues and inputs you want. So to take back control of the uncontrollables, I would say block your notifications on your phone. I would say they're uncontrollables. You're at the whims of various apps and companies that want to contact you at any point. I would say advertisements are another form of uncontrollables. When you're walking around the street, you can see billboards. When you're watching TV, you can see adverts for junk food, and all of these are providing cues that might not necessarily align with your current goals. So focus on limiting your time and attention on these uncontrollables. So uncontrollables can be cues for you to initiate bad habits, but they can also be distractions from what you're trying to do in that present moment. And as we know, it can take a long time, perhaps over 20 minutes, to get back into some sort of flow state. So any distraction that's pulling you out of that is going to be highly distracting, and you're going to be way less productive, and you won't be in control of your life. So one of the easiest ways to quieten the noise from the uncontrollables is to get up at 5 a.m. And this is a very common productivity hack. And I did it for an entire year and I'm trying to get back into it now. But yeah, at 5 a.m, nothing's really going on. Like, you've got no inputs, no one's awake, no one is really around, no one's awake. So it's really easy to limit the uncontrollables and have no distractions, particularly if you take that time not to look at your phone. You focus on exercise, work, meditation, reading. You'll have very few distractions and you'll easily be able to get back into flow state and take back control of your life. Other things you can do: find a quiet space to sit and think at work. When I'm in the office, I'm definitely overwhelmed by the noise and the distractions that happen in the office. So if I ever feel myself getting completely overwhelmed, I'll go and find a quiet meeting room and just gather my thoughts. During family time, sometimes that can be quite overwhelming. I found that a trip to the shops actually helps me kind of decompress and declutter my mind. And you can also get stuff for your family, which is helpful. And then before I had kids, going out on my bike for hours was just a wonderful way to escape uncontrollables and just get out into the countryside. So yeah, there we have it. That was my 3-step plan to taking back control of my life. So I wanted to relate this concept back to my model of you as an agent who is a goal-seeking agent and is constantly taking action and assessing feedback as they move towards that goal. A key thing about that model is that agent is obviously moving within an environment that's providing feedback to that agent as well. And that's what I'm trying to identify here. Alan Watts famously said in one of his lectures that it's almost impossible to think about someone without the context of their environment, yet we do it so often. And that's what I really like about James Clear's book here. He talks really well about the importance of environment design and the impacts that can have on an individual. And this idea also relates back to my personal story. So I never really thought about this idea of environment design prior to the pandemic. So in my 20s, I was constantly rushing around. My environment was extremely volatile, extremely noisy, and I had no idea the difference between controllables and uncontrollables. And that meant that I was living quite a reactive life, and it was, I would say, a little bit out of control. But when the first pandemic hit, I was able to take back control of my life and work on things that I wanted to do. So I excelled at work. I changed the direction of our business, arguably, ran a marathon, I did a cycling ultra, and I got married. So I was super productive within that COVID-19 pandemic because I was able to just focus in on what I wanted to do, and I had stabilized my environment. I had to be at home. I focused on the controllables, so things I could do, like those actions towards my goals. And naturally, my uncontrollables were quite limited. When the world opened up again, I went back to my old ways to some extent. I was slightly better, I think, because I could still work from home. But it wasn't until I had my child that this happened again. And I was able to be at home with my child, but just have a lot more time to myself and to think about these things. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. And don't forget to check out more from me here. Thanks.